As the guards on either side of the door verify your amulets, one of them makes a point to look past the group and down the steps from where you just came. Despite the recent and calamitous encounter with the giant spider, all that has followed you is silence.
This has got to be the last of them.
Many of the guards' features were like that of a small elk. Its exaggerated lips suggested a menacing snarl, but one could also believe that it was simply a trait all of those of this race had been born with.
The boss says as soon as the music starts, we'll lock it up.
The second guard silently agreed with a nod of their vaguely possum-shaped head. Indeed, music could now be heard from beyond the doorway. Airy stringed instruments play an arpeggio that seems to both rise and fall endlessly. There is also the undeniably welcoming aroma of freshly baked bread, meat cooked over an open fire, and the tart but pleasant odor of carefully brewed ale. The impending and inviting atmosphere presents itself as such a stark contrast to the wet, cold, and treacherous introduction that you had received from the Silver Mountain. So captivated by this change of setting, none of you actually remember who stepped through the doorway first. But here you now stand, side by side, at the precipice of a sprawling arena. To your left and right extends an open corridor lined with tables suggesting that you had only just missed a great feast. Plates are, for the most part, licked clean. What bones remain are from prized beast and fowl, only rarely seen at the finest of royal dinners. Of course, you are not alone. Nearby stands a peculiar-looking creature holding 3 steins of beer in one hand. A gnome rushes past the group uttering apologies for being underfoot and then disappears into the crowd of bodies that has begun to descend into an amphitheater of incredible proportions. Groups this large are rare, and it is unlikely that any of you have seen such a crowd like this before. Yet there is plenty of room for all. Directly in front of you are dozens of rows of seats carved into the mountain's interior. Across the arena you see a second mezzanine already full of bodies waiting patiently for what is to come. Below the terrace seating lies an open expanse divided into 2 halves. Nearest to you is a section of large, round wooden tables. It is hard to see from this distance, but it should be assumed that this is where the more honored guests are sat, although you have yet to see anyone resembling a commoner. Past the seated elite, on the opposite side of the open floor, are several rows of simple benches. This section is nearly full with uniformly dressed figures, each wearing a white robe and each sitting motionless with identically perfect posture. Past the lower level of seating is a vacant space, no more than 30 feet in depth, followed by what is the second most prominent feature of the room, a jagged crevasse that extends from one side to the other. From where you stand at the top of the arena, its bottom cannot be seen. Past the snaking canyon is another open expanse. This area is vacant aside from 3 large wooden crates. Other than their exceptional size, nothing more can be inferred of them from your point of view. But dominating the view across the arena is a massive wall of ice enveloping the chamber's distant facade. Much like what you discovered behind the shuttered windows in the entryway, it almost radiates blue light. Guards, much like those who had granted you entrance, stand at attention throughout. The other guests, as varied as they are, seem to be treating the affair with elevated decorum. And now, thousands of seats have been filled, conversations have found their ends, and all eyes face forward as the instruments, which you now see to be spectral in nature, play their final notes. The torches that light the arena, many of which are fueled by arcane energy, appear to dim in reverence to a voice that seems to emanate from the stone walls themselves.
Welcome. Today you are surrounded by greatness. You have been chosen for your determination, your curiosity, and your desire to be remembered as legends. To become legends, you must choose to stand for what you believe, to stand even when it feels you can no longer endure, and to stand amongst those who share your convictions.
Several pockets within the sprawling crowd, especially those still with drinks in their hands, have taken the words literally and get to their feet.
The good people have found peace in many of your towns, healed your wounded, cured your ill, and done so while asking for little in return.
The arena rumbles audibly as low voices murmur in agreement.
And today, the good people continue to provide you comfort and gifts.
The grinding of gears can be heard from somewhere deep within the stone walls. Those who are not standing rise to their feet for a better look. To your left is a loud hiss, and steam briefly billows from an opening in the rock face. Some of the guests take a step back, but most wait patiently as a stream of bright red lava begins to cascade down the chasm that divides the arena floor. Even though the molten rock disappears as it fills the canyon, its heat is enough to cause those sitting at the round tables to retreat.
Your first gift is the fountain. For far too long, the Silver Mountain has laid dormant, encased in ice, and unable to share its wisdom with the world. Your cities have flourished in its shadow while never knowing its power. Together, the two can provide the world peace by destroying that which you fear most.
At this point, one of the wooden crates in the center of the arena collapses to reveal a cage made of stone which you recognize as remnants of the Haven Spire. Inside the cage is an Androsphinx, a creature with a lion's body, wings, and the face of a man. It turns towards the crowd to roar, but is cut short as a sheet of ice breaks free from the wall behind it. The blue ice shatters into crystals, many of which fall into the chasm and are instantly turned to steam. The Androsphinx turns towards the wall, places one massive paw on the bars of the cage, and immediately turns to stone. There is a moment of silence, and then the crowd erupts in applause. Through the sound of celebration, the voice continues.
Your second gift is freedom. Freedom from fear of that which you cannot control. Freedom from fear of that which you do not understand. The power of the Silver Mountain means that none of you will have to bend to the obscene powers of the arcane arts. The Silver Mountain, the great mediator of nature, will grant you your freedom.
At this point, the crowd has become divided. Some are still celebrating the swift and effortless destruction of a creature normally thought to be almost unstoppable. Some have begun to plot and scheme with their neighbors, imagining a world where they have the power to control all beasts. But one small portion of those in attendance has gone silent. Their skin has grown pale, and their fancy clothes have faded to simple, often tattered garments. As many of them attempt to slip away towards the back of the crowd, the disembodied voice returns one last time. However, this time it lacks some of its power, as whatever magic was used to conjure it in the first place begins to fail.
Yes. Today you are surrounded by greatness. Today you are surrounded by legends. That is, if anyone ever finds your remains.
In that moment, the two giant crates that remain collapse. The one on the left reveals a red-skinned creature about 10 feet tall. Its body resembles a Goliath, but its head mirrors the shape of a bull. From its back protrude a set of leathery wings with hooked claws on each end. In one hand, the demon holds a glowing long sword, in the other, a coiled whip crackling with flames. The container to the right falls inward on a creature that is momentarily obscured by debris, but quickly pushes itself free. With each motion, clouds of black smoke weave around its limbs. This beast is a devil with legs like tree trunks and crimson skin. It too wields a whip, but made of what looks like rotten leather. Both of the beasts briefly assess the crumbling ice wall behind them, and then leap over the lava-filled ravine into the crowd of people. The devil grabs one of the white-robed figures, pulls back their hood to reveal the sawed-off set of horns, laughs, and throws them back across the ravine towards an exposed section of the Silver Mountain, where their body immediately turns to stone.